Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got a MacBook Air, whatever year these are, it doesn't really matter because they didn't really change across the years. Anyway, it apparently does not turn on, so let's see what happens. I'll plug a charger in, and we have a green light on the charger, and it's gone orange for charge. However, it appears that it does not power on. Okay. Alright, let's take the back cover off and let's see what's going on the inside. Now, the customer did supply this with an additional battery. Okay, yeah, the battery has been changed. The customer reckons there's problems with the batteries. So I've got this one and another one in a box that I need to test. But the device should turn on without a battery anyway. So I'm going to unplug the battery. So with no battery connected, if I just open the laptop, I'll just hang the display off the back of the counter just so it's open. And if I'll disconnect the keyboard and trackpad. And if I just plug the power cable in, it should just switch on its own. Which it still doesn't. Okay, fine. So next question, do we have the two important rails that we need? So here comes the meme, everyone. We need PP3V42, which is the 3.42 volt rail. That we already have because we have a light on the charger. This charge light is powered by PP3V42. So we know that's already present because we have a light on the charger. The other one we need is PPBus G3 Hot, which is a 8.6 or 8.5 volt rail on the MacBook Air. So I'm going to look for that. We're going to find it's the biggest power rail in the laptop, so it's going to be this big inductor here. So I'm going to quickly just poke at that. I'm going to stick my black probe on a ground point. There we go, and PPBus G3 Hot is at 1.9 volts. That looks like a short circuit to me, because if it was missing entirely, then it's likely that it's not being created or not being told to turn on. If it was up at normal voltage, like 8.5, 8.6, whatever it is, then it's probably nothing to do with our issue. However, at 1.9, that means that it is on, but something is pulling it down. There is probably a short circuit in this laptop, and PPBus G3 Hot is pouring power into that short circuit, trying to power stuff up, but it doesn't have the horsepower to dump energy into this short, so it's falling down. It's running out of puff. So there's probably a short circuit in this thing somewhere. So let's do a little bit of beep buzzing and just see what we can find. So I'll put my multimeter into continuity mode. And firstly, what is the resistance to ground on PPBus G3 Hot? I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but let's just see what it is first. Right, about 215, 216 ohms. So that is very low for a power rail of this size. That's not a dead short. So PPBus G3 Hot itself is not shorted, but 216 ohms, that's really low. Most likely something connected to PPBus G3 Hot is shorted. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the backlight circuit, because that's an absolute classic one to get shorted, because the backlight for the screen is a high power circuit, so it commonly has problems. So I'm going to poke at, let's see, let's start with, I mean, there's a bit of schmutz around here. Let's take a look down here where the display connector is. You can see we've got a little bit of schmutz on top of there, maybe. So this diode here is the output stage of the backlight circuit. So I'm going to check what the resistance to ground is from there. So once again, black probe onto a screw hole. Notice as well, all of these screw holes are all discoloured. It kind of looks like this thing has seen some humidity or liquid at some point. Oh, kilo ohms, mega ohms, loads of resistance. Yeah. So that's fine. What about the backlight fuse? So this backlight fuse goes onto PP bus G3 hot. So yeah, we're seeing that 216 ohms again there. That's going to droop down to 216. Okay. Fine. What about other places I've seen problems are the CPU power rail. I'm taking complete shots in the dark at the moment. We're literally just stabbing into the dark. Let's check this bank of capacitors here. I've seen these guys go short circuit. I think these guys are on PP bus G3 hot because we're seeing the same thing there. So I don't think that actually tells me anything. Right, some random shots in the dark are not getting me anywhere. So I'm going to actually take the logic board out and then I'm going to give it a real hard look on both sides and see if I can spot something. I'm not very good at spotting faults from afar. In the past, I've discovered faults and then gone, oh, look, you can see it. Now we know it's there. However, we'll have a look anyway. Maybe I'll see something. That felt sticky. Dusty. But dust is fine because dust isn't liquid damage. I mean, it is kind of grotty though. That might not be helping. Brush this down. Right, let's have a proper look at this now. Nothing with a crack in it or a spot on it or anything like that. Okay. So looking at the other side of the board, after dusting it, there's still a few areas where it's, you know, a bit grotty and stuff like that. I don't think any of that is corrosion, but you never know. So what I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to clean the board and see if that gets me anywhere. So I'm going to spritz it with some alcohol and just scrub the dirty areas. Now, toothbrushing a board like this is not the best way to clean it. Ideally, we need an ultrasonic cleaner or something like that. But I don't actually have an ultrasonic cleaner. It's on my list of things that I should buy at some point. However, just a quick toothbrushing like this should give us a clean slate. There we go, straight away that looks cleaner. That's taken away any concern that that sort of light dirt might be causing our problem, which I'm almost certain that it's not, but you never know. Let's check for changes. Slightly higher than before, but I don't think that's significant. So for anyone who's thinking, well, you've got, you know, a short circuit, why don't you just inject power? We can't inject onto 200 ohms because that's not a short circuit. Whatever is causing that low resistance still has enough resistance not to overheat in a injection environment, so to speak. We need to be at below 1 ohm to actually do voltage injection effectively. Okay, so I think we'll have to start getting systematic with this and actually start looking at what is on the PP bus G3 hot line and start disconnecting things one by one. So let's bring up some schematics for this. This is an 820-3437B. So on the schematics, as you can see on the top here, we've got page 50 PP bus supply and battery charger. So page 50. And over here, let's zoom in a little bit. So this page here is the supply for PP bus G3 hot. And as you can see at the output here, it says PP bus G3H. So This is our problem supply. This is what is not powering up. We have a fuse at the output here, F7140. Now, I really don't think the problem is going to be in the supply area. I think if there was a problem in the supply, then I think the rail would be just 0. I think it would be off completely. But let's just make sure that's the case. And we can easily discover this by removing F7140, which isolates the system from the source. So if we do that, we can determine if the problem with this is here in the supply or out there on the system. So let's remove F7140 and see what we get. So luckily, because this is an Apple board, we have board views here. So I can search for F7140. And we can see here that it is this, we can see here that it is this fuse here next to that big inductor that I was probing. So let's remove that fuse. Now I find these fuses are a bit of an animal to take off the board straight off the bat. So I tend to just add a little bit of fresh solder to both sides to just reflow the joins, and then that makes things much easier to remove, which is also less stressful for both the board and yourself, because there's nothing more stressful than when something won't come off the board. So I'm just warming up my soldering iron. So I'll be running at 400 degrees for this, and let's just touch up that join there. And for everyone who's screaming, flux, flux, we're just reflowing a join here. The quality of the join is irrelevant. There we go. I just need some fresh solder there. We can do all the fluxing and stuff when we're actually trying to put stuff in place for realsies. Right, and hot air. There we go. So on the supply side, we've got a very confusing reading. Can I have a better ground? Okay. I'm not sure what that means. I think we need to go into manual ranging to make any sense of that. What about the load side? But the important thing is we still have this low resistance on the system side. Cool, so it's not the supply, which cuts out sort of all of this area here, which is the PP-Bus G3 Hot supply. So what else does PP-Bus G3 Hot connect to on the system side then? Well, this is kind of annoying to check, because if we click on PP-Bus G3 Hot from the fuse here, it doesn't actually look like it goes to many places. As you can see, we don't have a huge, like most of this chunk here is all test points, and we've got a couple of other bits and pieces over there. There's the backlight fuse. We already know that it's not the backlight because that's not shorted to ground, although we should check it anyway. However, there's lots of stuff that is actually powered from it, and the answer to that is, if we click on this guy here, Resistor 5450, this is a current sense resistor. And when PP-Bus G3 Hot connects to this, it becomes, there we go. It becomes PP-Bus _S5 HS Computing iSense. And that then goes on to power a bunch of other stuff over here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Resistor 5450 off the board to isolate all of that and see if we get any luck. I'm going to remove that, and then after that we're going to knock the backlight fuse to one side just for good measure. Before I do either of those two things though, I'm going to put F7140 back on the board, because as you start removing stuff from the board, you can start finding yourself falling into a bit of a rabbit hole where you're taking bits and pieces off the board, and you can very easily start losing track of what went where, what way round, and so on and so forth. And it can make the job more daunting as you go. So I'm going to put that fuse back on the board, and then we're going to remove the current sense resistor, which is just next door. Right, let's see if I'm rewarded with progress yet or not. Not feeling super optimistic about this one. I'm not really getting any easy stuff early on. Fine, right, let's see. So this is the source side, so we should find kiloohms there now. Yes. Okay, so PP bus G3 hot looks like it's fine because we're up in the kiloohms range. Although my heckin' multimeter still has a mind of its own. This is a ranging issue. This is why a lot of people scorn auto ranging, because you can get very odd results. However, a lot of this is just bad probing and stuff like that. The point is, it was showing kiloohms. That's what I care about. So what about the iSense side? Yeah, there we go. There's our low resistance again. So we're getting somewhere. It's on the computing side. That's good. That narrows it down fairly significantly. So we're now into the realms where where our fault is somewhere over here. So let's look over this direction again. So our issue is on ppbus _ S5HS computing iSense. And as you can see, that goes over to this region here. So what is this? There's MOSFETs there. That is DDR power. So that's our RAM power supply, because it's got PDDR, power DDR regulated. We've also got the 1V05 rail, so the 1 volt rail. That's that guy there. Then also we have all of these guys over here, and this is all CPU V core. So this is a two-phase power supply into the CPU. So it's not going to be any of these capacitors, because all of these capacitors are sitting right on the rail. And if any of these guys were shorted, the whole rail would be pulled down to ground. It seems more like, and part of me wants to say, well, it might be one of these MOSFETs. But if one of these MOSFETs had failed, then I would expect us to have a short through the CPU, which would probably look like a 3 or 4 ohm short. And that's not what I'm seeing here, so I'm not convinced about that, but we might have to delve into that. What we can do, if we go back over here though, and start in this section, is if we probe the output of these MOSFETs, we should find that there's a different resistance there. If we see, because the MOSFET should be acting as a barrier separating out the two rails. So if we find that there is that same low resistance on the output of one of these MOSFET packages, then that would also be a smoking gun. So let's go black probe on ground, and let's do a bit more probing. So what about, so here's our DDR regulator. See, that one's going up to 750-ish, so not the same. That's probably fine. So what about this one, our 1 volt rail? See, that looks exactly the same. 176, 177. And if we go up to HS Computing iSense, which is on these resistors here, these capacitors, that's going to settle on, okay, 178. So yeah, it's this guy, it's this area. So has that MOSFET failed, I wonder? So the problem here is that if this guy has failed and it's failed short, then ppbus G3 hot went through onto this 1 volt rail, and this probably goes into the CPU. Let's check and find out. So we're over here. We're seeing our low voltage here. So that's the suspect MOSFET. The output of it goes through here. It goes into a current sense resistor. And it goes into the PCH. Well, it goes into the CPU. So, that's bad news, man. That's real bad news. So we probably have a dead CPU at this point. Let's remove Q7630. If we go from our DDR inductor up to iSense, as you can see, we have high resistance. However, if we go from the 1V05 rail to iSense, we have nil. So this MOSFET is in a dead short. So that's probably killed our CPU. Big sad. I think we're done, guys. I think we're kill. I'm going to take that off the board. And then I'll grab one of my breaker boards to see if we've got another one. And we'll try replacing it. Maybe we get lucky. I'm not holding my breath. And with that removed, we should likely find that PP-Bus G3 hot is now up. So we'll check the resistance again. I've put the current sense resistor back on the board. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Yeah, kilo ohms. And up here at computing iSense, and kilo ohms. So yeah. Yeah, the writing's on the wall. So just again to prove a point now, what I'll do is I'll connect up the charger, and we should see that PP-Bus G3 hot goes high, which proves that we've now resolved the fault on PP-Bus G3 hot. And I'm doing that because at this point I'm 99% certain this CPU is dead. And I think that this is a waste of time. But what I want to do is show you the diagnostic process here, because a lot of the time when I get a fail when doing a board repair, I often don't show the video because usually I've failed because I didn't know what the problem was. I couldn't figure it out. And there's generally not a lot to be learned from that. Whereas in this instance, we have actually managed to identify the problem. We just can't do anything about it. So I will share that with you because it shows you how well you still learn a thing or two. Also, could this come out, please? So we plug the charger in, and there won't be a light on the charger because I haven't got the little jumper thing in. But the important thing is we should now find that PP-Bus G3 hot is up. So we'll go to voltage. Black probe on ground. And as you can see, we now have 8.6 volts on PP-Bus G3 hot. So PP-Bus G3 hot is now fixed and is up, but we now don't have a 1 volt rail, which means our CPU won't run. So we have not fixed it. We've just managed to figure out where the fault is. So let me check if I've got any more of these boards that have the same chip on it. I'm not ordering another one of these chips because PP-Bus G3 hot has been pumping 8.6 volts into the CPU. And that kills the CPU, folks. So yeah, I really doubt this thing is going to work, even if we did replace that chip. Alright, I've got a breaker laptop here that has a board that is an absolute state. Let's check if this one is any good. So we'll check resistance through the same MOSFET, which is high, and PP-Bus G3 hot on this guy also looks pretty good. Cool. Let's see if this one works. It's worth a try. It's as good as any, to be honest. Alright, what do you think, folks? You think the CPU survived 8.6 volts? Just plug in everything in and we'll connect up a fan so we know if it actually turns on. Alright, drum roll everyone. Ah! I don't believe it. We're on. Let's check our rails. PPBus G3 hot is up. Oh, it just fell over again. That might be the device power cycling. They do that. Anyway, 8.6. The 1 volt rail. 107. Good enough. CPU V core. 1.7. Bloody hell. You sure? I don't like the look of that. I'd expect CPU V core to be like 1 volt. 1.7 looks kind of hot to me. I mean, it's not brain dead because it's doing fan stuff. I think I should put this into the laptop and see what it does. I'm going to see if we actually get display output from this thing. It's doing something. I mean, the board is also too hot still where I've been soldering on it. I'm not that lucky, am I? Here we go. Power on. Fan spin. CPU is going up in flames, man. It's burning hot to the touch. No, that's dead. All the power rails are coming on, which is satisfying the board enough to switch on. However, the CPU doesn't actually function if you give it power, and it's just drinking up as much voltage as it can take, it seems. When we had fan spin, for a mad moment, for a mad second, I thought we might have had a victory, but that's that. That's where I'm going to throw in the towel on this one. Yeah, in before someone in the comments is just like, oh, you need to do this, and that'll fix it. However, at that point, I'm 99% certain the CPU is dead. I hope you guys found that interesting nonetheless. It was an interesting lesson in shorted MOSFETs and detecting them, and potentially what the fix might have been. You know, if we had been really lucky and permanent damage had not been done to the CPU, it was almost there. It was trying. But yeah, that CPU is dead. Oh well, thank you very much, everyone. As always, my links are down in the description below for my Patreon, my Discord, my Twitter, and my Instagram, which I sometimes post on. As always, give the video a like if you like what you saw, and that tells YouTube that you want to see more of these videos. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.